In this video I'm going to show you how to color columns in a row and how to change the colors, and if you don't want the colors, how to remove them. So first, let's start by adding a section to this empty page. I'm just going to create a full width section. This is not important. The next thing you want to do is to create a row, because the columns have to be in a row. So for this example, let's just make 5 columns, but you can basically pick any number of columns you want. So yeah, 5 columns. Try and drop it. Now let's say right now if you go in the settings for this row, and if you look, there are no options to color specific columns to a color that you would like. So for that, what you need to do is to hover over these columns button up on the navigation bar, then click on it, and then a menu will show up that will show all the columns that exist on this page. Right now you only have one row. If you had multiple rows, there would be one section for your first row, another section for the second row, and so on. So for this first row, let's color the first column. So what you do, you just click on the pencil, or you can click just anywhere where the first column is highlighted, and now you have access to all the properties for this column. So let's, for example, add a background color to this, like yellow. And now, as you can see, this column is going to have a yellow background. And you can also play with the padding for this column. So like top padding, bottom padding, and left and right padding. So these paddings, let me explain what it does. If you have content inside this column, if you add padding to it, the allowed area for that content is going to be smaller, for example, when you add left and right padding. Top and bottom, they kind of act like margins. It just adds extra space to the content for this column. Same for the bottom part. And you can, once you've satisfied with the color, you can do a bunch of other stuff. Instead of color, you can also add an image for the background image, or you can set the global text color for that column. So for example, I can set it to red, and if I go add a paragraph, the text for the paragraph will be red. But obviously I can also change the text if I didn't want to, the text color. That's just gonna be the default, but you can turn it to black. Just gonna leave it red. Other things you can do, so again, remember, you can't really change the column properties here. You would need to go to columns and then select the column you want to change the background properties, or text properties, or padding. Now let's say I want this column to have a border. As you can see, there are no options here. What you need to do is to go to the advanced setting, and then under border you can add full border, you can add bottom border, you can add top border, you can add top and bottom. So for example, for the full border, you can have solid, dashed, dotted, and for each of those you can pick how thick you want it to be. So for example, 5 pixel, and here you can also pick the color for it. So let's, for example, pick red. And you can have the corners, these corners, right now they're sharp, like square. If you wanted to, you can go in advanced again and have the corners to be rounded a bit. So for example, 5 is just a tiny bit, and 25 is more round. You can add drop shadows, so like this, You can add inset shadows, inner shadows, and so on. These other options, I would not recommend you to play with them unless you know what you're doing with CSS. If you know CSS, then feel free to change these options as well. But that's basically it. So for example, if you wanted to go add a color to this column, what you would do, you go to columns, third column, change the color, for example, to green. No, it's not selecting it. Oh, because it's like transparent. So make sure you boost up the transparency to 100. And then set your other options. And you're good to go. So that's basically how you color columns. And again, if you didn't want the colors anymore, you just go back to the column section here, pick the column that you want, and just turn off the transparency to 0. And there you go. And you can like reset the paddings as well. So that's basically how you adjust the styling for your columns in a row on ClickFunnels Editor.